What's up everyone, this is Dariusz Kalbarczyk, co-founder of NG Poland, JS Poland, AI Poland and AngularMaster.dev. Welcome back to the Angular Master podcast. Today we've got a special guest straight from San Francisco, USA. Angular product lead at Google, speaker, author, blogger, podcaster, ladies and gentlemen, Minko Gechev. Hi Minko, how are you today?
Yeah, doing pretty good. It's early morning here in the Bay Area and we have a wonderful day.
So let's get started. Why has Angular focused so much on improving developer experience and performance recently?
So when you think about Angular and developer experience, actually, that's why AngularJS in the first place got so popular. Remember back in the day with AngularJS, you're able to just add a couple of tags or a couple of attributes to an HTML element, and you're able to do some things that were required a lot of JavaScript and a lot of coding in the past. So AngularJS used to provide an incredible developer experience until applications started scaling up, of course. From there on, we built Angular, and we're working on ensuring that developers have comparable and better developer experience at scale. But we reached some certain slowdown. Remember when we were working on Ivy, there were a lot of opportunities to improve developer experience, but we just didn't have the bandwidth for it. So we kind of regressed a little bit in terms of developer experience. And lately, with Ivy being complete, we are just doubling our investment on developer experience to make sure that we enable developers to be productive with Angular, as productive as they can be.
How does Angular stay flexible while maintaining a long-term vision?
So with the long-term vision, it is more of a direction that we have set for Angular. We would like the framework to have certain characteristics for developers to be able to develop applications at scale and to keep these applications performant. That's what matters the most. And as you can see, this long-term vision is pretty flexible by itself. Sometimes we would commit to some more specific projects. Let's say we would like to enable very fine-grained hydration. And this is in our vision and one of the ways for us to achieve high performance. And as we are doing the exploration for fine-grained hydration, we will see what exactly is the threshold that satisfies developers that we have reached. And if we reach it sooner rather than later, if we reach it on a certain level of granularity, we don't have to push all the way to the long-term vision that we have created originally. So there is a lot of wiggle room. There is a lot of opportunity to update the vision based on developers' feedback and also on the state of the world right now, state of technologies.
Can you explain Angular's planning process for the new features?
Yeah, it's has multiple stages, many different stages, and very much depends on the feature. There are certain features that we have on GitHub, let's say, which are not necessarily that much work. There are maybe, let's say, a week or two of work, and we consider them to be part of Angular in the future. They're in alignment with Angular's vision. And additionally, we can deliver them pretty quickly. We think they're a good idea and they're in high demand by developers. So these features, we usually pick a few of these so that we have some fun and useful announcements for developers. We pick them very much in priority order when we look on GitHub, how we see which features are the top rated ones, which are going to be the most impactful for developers, improve their developer experience. And we just prioritize them as part of a release. There are these features, and there are these bigger long-term features that are features such as zoneless and incremental hydration and reactivity. These are large feature areas that will take years to complete. So we can't commit to too many of these, as you can imagine, because our team has limited bandwidth. And for them, we try to be significantly more strategic. We look at the current state of the web. We look at where we want Angular to be 5 to 10 years from now. And based on that, we make a decision which would be the next project to prioritize. And from there, we make a plan where we have different milestones for this individual effort. We plan them per releases, and we slowly start executing, slowly and thoroughly, because they're usually higher risk products also. So we want to be more careful when we deliver something that could have such a general impact on the framework.
What were the key findings from the 2024 developer survey?
I'd say with the developer survey in 2024, we validated a lot of our assumptions. There were no really any massive surprises. I'm actually going to look at the survey results right now to make sure that I am as accurate as possible. But we very much saw that there are opportunities for improving the component authoring format. A lot of people across all the surveys and all the conversations with developers we had were reporting that these double imports that people currently have with standalone components are redundant, unnecessary, kind of annoying. So we don't really need to have them. We're going to figure out a plan to remove them with selectorless. People were still sharing that there is higher opportunity to improve the initial load time performance. We have been seeing this specific thing move from being pretty bad to now being decently good. I would say in a couple of years, it will turn it from an opportunity to a strength. These are the two main ones that are applicable across the whole framework. Additionally, we would like to improve the documentation and sample codes. You know that we shipped AngularMaster.dev a couple of years ago, and it has been significant updates and upgrades, specifically because of the interactive tutorial and the revisited documentation, but there is still a lot of opportunity there. We would like to make the content more complete and discoverable. Debugging and profiling is always a thing where we can be better. So we're working currently with Chrome DevTools to make sure that we integrate with the performance panel directly and make it even easier for people to build Angular applications and debug them. And we're planning a lot of improvements around the Angular DevTools extension and server-side rendering, plus testing. I'll say these are the biggest opportunities that I'll say we'll focus on all of them throughout 2025.
Why do you think standalone components have seen such a high adoption?
I guess mostly the level of indirection that they're improving. So we have ng modules. We had ng modules in the past. A lot of applications still use them. And we see that it's sometimes a little bit like redundant to like have yet another concept just to declare what you're using inside of your template. Additionally, like they're harder to understand by beginners. I'll say they're an artificial problem that we created because of how we structured the templates in Angular and the fact that we wanted to have selectors on all cost. Now we're a little bit more flexible, so it's easy for us to make them optional. The other reason is, as I mentioned, the indirection. Like you're using a component in your components templates or a directive, but you're declaring it in an ng module. So this indirection sometimes could be suboptimal and create bad developer experience.
How does Angular plan to simplify component authoring further?
We have a short-term and a long-term plan here. In the short term, I'd say it is introducing selectorless. For those of your audience who are not familiar with selectorless, it is a way to directly import a component inside of your JavaScript module and reference it inside of the template without a selector, just by using the component or the directive's class name. That's the short term. So in this way you don't have to import a component once in the JavaScript module and also another time inside of your component metadata. And that's going to be a significant improvement. Currently, I've seen some components that have component metadata that is over like 30 lines of code when they list all the different pipes, components, and directives that they import. So that's in the short term. We're planning to have an RFC by the end of 2025, collect community feedback, and have an implementation next year. Still very much depends on the bandwidth. We can prioritize it higher depending on other priorities, but this is, I'll say, a conservative estimate. And the other improvement that we're planning to make, they're currently, I'll say, significantly more abstract in our minds right now. We're just exploring how we can further improve the authoring format from here. Our timeline for this is, say, the next 5 years, maybe. We'll be exploring alternative authoring formats that could be a better fit for Angular potentially with all the features that we developed over the past couple of years. And we would also want to solve some problems that we identified in the framework since now 2015 or so. So for the past 10 years.
How do you ensure unbiased feedback from the Angular community?
Talking to a lot of developers and having many different people communicating with folks in different mediums often creates the opportunities to for bias. Let's say if I'm spending all my time on GitHub and I'm looking at issues by developers who are comfortable using GitHub, their own GitHub, and more communicative there, I'm focused on certain developer segments. I'd say probably more advanced developers who are potentially more vocal. And this way I could easily forget about beginners who are just getting started with Angular. So I could optimize the framework specifically for the developer audience that has some good amount of experience in Angular and make it really hard to use. That's a very common issue, actually, that we see across the industry. So what you could do is what we are doing, I guess, is to identify the different developer segments and make sure that each one of them is well represented. So we'll be looking at GitHub, of course, but we'll be also validating what is beginner developers consider important. And we do that either by connecting with beginner developers or asking them to participate in our developer experience studies, or by talking to educators. So that's one example. Additionally, once we have collected the feedback from all the different sources, we usually run our developer satisfaction survey so that we can see in the developer satisfaction survey, we have overall responses from the entire developer audience. And from there, we just validate that our assumptions were correct.
What improvements led to the rise in developer satisfaction in 2024?
Yeah, the main improvements that developers acknowledged were around standalone components, signals. Signals is the highest by far. The new control flow, which is pretty high up there as well. And all the other templating improvements, such as local template variables and deferrable views. We have been seeing also increasing positive sentiment around templates. In the past, we've had developer survey responses that were saying, we don't like templates, we like JSX or TSX. And we were wondering why exactly, what people do not like about templates. Is it because they're strings? Well, they actually are not, because our IDs and text editors are actually performing syntax highlighting, and you have a lot of great tooling support. So by incorporating some features that developers are used to in JavaScript in our templates, we have been seeing significantly increased positive sentiment around templates as well. I'll say with selectorless, when we make selectors optional, I would assume that the templating system positive sentiment is going to grow even further. So I guess at the end of the day, it might not be that developers prefer JSX or TSX over templates. It might be that they prefer some features of JSX or TSX that we didn't used to have in templates. And from there, by introducing these features, templates might turn out to be the best combination of something that is statically analyzable and very optimizable by the Angular compiler, and at the same time providing the developer ergonomics that people need.
You are now listening to the Angular Master Podcast by ANG Poland. Listen, code, repeat, all you need to know to become a super Angular developer. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and drop us a cool comment. And don't miss out our second show, the JavaScript Master Podcast, where you find tons of fantastic JavaScript topics. What are the plans for replacing Angular's default test runner?
Currently, Angular CLI is still using Karma. Karma is deprecated, so we want to move away from it. And I'll say for a couple of years now, we've been having the project to replace Karma with something else. And this project, unfortunately, got a little bit delayed because of some other priorities. We wanted to improve, let's say, HMR and Angular server-side rendering experience. and improve our build system. So we will do another investigation right now. Last time we looked at it, we're thinking that potentially Web Test Runner and Jest are good replacements. But since then, let's say Vite also grew a lot. So we'd like to see where Vite fits into the picture, and we have people on the tooling team who are responsible for finding the best solution to move forward.
What benefits will selector-less components bring to developers?
Another level of reduced boilerplate. I would say they are the natural next step after optional ng modules, because with ng modules, you're getting indirection, but also you're getting certain benefits of being able to use certain components in the context of a different ng module. And you would give your template slightly different semantics this way. You can have different imports in this ng module. With making ng modules optional, you bring a lot of boilerplate. So what we have been doing recently is just recognizing that this boilerplate is unnecessary with optional ng modules, and we would like to improve it. So that's it, reduce boilerplate.
Why are signal-based forms an important next step for Angular?
I'll say a couple of reasons. We'd like to have a unified form altering experience. We've been very unopinionated about template-driven forms and about reactive forms, which one you should use in lots of scenarios. With signals, we can solve this problem space very easily with one forms package, and also integrate them really well with signals with Angular's new reactivity model. So we can provide good developer experience and unification. This doesn't mean that reactive forms and template forms or template-driven forms are going away. They will be benefiting from better signal integrations as well. But over time, as we develop the signal forms may become the default recommendation for developers. And probably they will be having enough benefits that people would be wanting to use signal forms.
What lesson have you learned from implementing incremental hydration?
Yeah, I would say the main lesson right now that's like everyone probably on the team has found something different. For me, I think just developers, we need to explain better what the benefits of incremental hydration are. I'd say that's the biggest opportunity right now, because we have this amazing feature, and I would say it's not getting the attention that we anticipated. And I assume it's mostly because we haven't explained its benefits well enough. That's mostly it.
What advantages does zoneless change detection offer?
First, Zone.js would be optional, so you don't have to include it in your application bundle. So you have smaller bundle and faster initial render, since it doesn't have to execute and monkey patch all these browser APIs. That's already makes the zoneless experience significantly better. But on top of that, you also get fewer change detection calls, because by default, with Zone.js, you can schedule multiple change detection calls. With zone coalescing, we're kind of addressing this problem partially. With Zone.js, you can also be significantly more targeted without Zone.js, with zoneless applications. So with Zone.js, you need to manually optimize your application, use some push change detection strategy in a bunch of places, and you can achieve pretty high performance. But with signals, it will be significantly easier with less configuration, with reduced mental overhead. And I was thinking about one more benefit. So faster runtime, smaller bundle, significantly more deterministic change detection, and easier way to optimize it. And the last benefit I was thinking about is better debugging, since you don't need to have these large stack traces that include Zone.js in the middle. Zone.js will not be in the picture. You'll be closer to the cause of change detection, and you'll be able to debug it easier.
How is Angular making new features easier to adopt?
Yeah, well, it's first we need to identify that we would like a feature to be easier to adopt, and we would like to identify that it is a great idea for everyone, or for a particular developer segment. So we could consider enabling it by default for everyone. A good example for this is the Angular control flow. We implemented it in a couple of weeks. We transitioned most projects at Google to the new control flow, and we enabled this migration to a new control flow for everyone as an optional migration with the Angular CLI. That's, I'll say, is the most powerful way. Plus, updating the whole documentation. This is the most powerful way, and the control flow was just a no-brainer. You just go with it. It's faster. It is easier. For some other features, let's say incremental iteration, we approach slightly differently. It's an excellent feature, but maybe not everyone out there needs it. So that's one of the reasons why paradigms such as, let's say, island architecture and resumability, they're not getting adoption for all applications out there, just because probably not everyone needs it. You have particular application segments that would benefit greatly out of that, let's say e-commerce, but maybe not everyone. So for them, we want to be a little bit more targeted. We would like to connect with the developer audience that would benefit the most of this feature and increase its visibility with case studies, documentation, videos, stuff like that.
What updates are planned for Angular documentation?
So something that we have been doing for the past years is rewriting and updating our developer guides. I'd say that's going to be an ongoing process, probably for the years ahead of us. Something else that we will really want to do is make it more discoverable, make the documentation more discoverable, because even though we have covered a lot of the Angular's API surface, but sometimes if you're looking for something, it might be just stuck, like it might be in a developer guide somewhere in the middle of a guide that you would never open, and you have no idea that's where you'd find this documentation content. So we would like to figure this out. We would like to figure out how to make the documentation more easier to discover, how to improve the search in a way. And currently we have a great search powered by Algolia. That's great, but it still doesn't provide the discoverability that we would like. We've looked into some solutions with AI, with LLMs and RAG. They provide some decent results, but they come with their own trade-offs. So we'll continue this exploration and figure out what is the best, what we can do in this space.
How does Angular plan to leverage AI in the future?
AI could benefit a lot of developers in different ways, and depending on where in the stack you're working, you could use AI more or less. Let's say if you're building a programming language, there is nothing much that you can use AI for. You can build an SDK to call LLMs from this programming language. That's probably the best thing you could do. There are tooling authors, though. Let's say IDE developers building IDEs and text editors. They could benefit a lot from providing smarter autocompletion, like Copilot-like autocompletion for your programming language. I'll say Angular is in a very similar position. We're building a very foundational technology, a framework. So one of the best things that we could do is work with tooling authors to make sure they provide the best autocomplete possible in their IDEs. Another thing we can do is ensure that Angular has a good SDK to communicate with different like LLMs or different AI models, not necessarily only LLMs. So that's it. Ensuring that developers can use LLMs and other AI SDKs directly from their Angular applications, and ensuring that the tooling that provides better Angular experience through AI can function well with the framework.
How do content creators help increase Angular's visibility?
I'll say, any content creator is reaching their developer audience. Any developer content creator is reaching their audience. And just by sharing about all innovation happening in Angular, these content creators, developer audience would have better understanding of where Angular is heading and what a modern framework it turned out to be over the past 3-4 years. So content creators are greatly helping Angular get outside of the bubble of the Angular community, especially if these content creators are developing content for the general JavaScript audience. And we're benefiting from, Angular is benefiting from content creators working within the Angular community, because they're providing an incredible amount of value to folks who are familiar with Angular and want to learn more advanced concepts. And they're also helping increase Angular's visibility outside of the Angular community to people who are familiar with JavaScript and maybe potentially React, but they don't really understand the greater JavaScript ecosystem. Content creators are fantastic. People like you do a lot of incredible work.
Thank you for your kind words. What challenges do you face with evolving Angular's reactivity?
I mean, there are some challenges. We haven't faced any unsolvable challenges. We have been taking this project very gradually, and we have been discovering various opportunities to improve Angular's reactivity. But so far, we haven't been really stuck or anything. Like, let's say we found an opportunity to improve the developer experience with Angular's new reactivity model, with signals, with new reactivity primitives, with resource and with linked signal. We have been maybe some challenges, I'd say, in making Zone.js optional around testing, potentially, ensuring that we have the proper timing there and making sure that we are not going to fail user developers' tests. I'd say that's probably the closest to like a challenge we have faced. That's why we're taking our time with Zoneless a little bit longer. But yeah, nothing major really.
What excites you most about Angular feature?
I'm the kind of a person, I guess, who believes in consistently making progress and advancing, just becoming better over time. And Angular has been around for, if we count only Angular without AngularJS, Angular has been around for close to 10 years now. And we have been consistently making progress, especially in the last 2, 3, 4 years. We have been just polishing Angular more and more consistently over time. And I see how making small gradual improvements over time in whatever you do, it doesn't matter whether it's Angular or whether it's your daily workouts or whether it is like studying or learning computer science or whatever, history, whatever, just doing these gradual improvements every single day or every single release or every single week. At some point, you experience an exponential progression because you're just significantly better. You have very stable foundation and you will be the best version of you that you could be. So that's what I'm excited about. Angular has been on this path for a long time. And it has been one of the most mature JavaScript frameworks out there. And it continues to grow with very little legacy because we have been getting rid of it gradually and updating applications with ng update. So I'm very excited to see how adding all these small improvements, Angular is going to develop.
What do you think about the Angular job market in relation to the AI revolution?
Yeah, so I see it in a couple of different ways. Just overall web developer job market, web development job market, and Angular. And there are different risks and different opportunities in each one of them. The web development web market, I would say that is going to vary, I guess. At first, like maybe some junior jobs might be automated at first, or they would change in the long run, but in the short term, they might be automated at first because we'll have tools like Bolt and like Repoit and Lovable App that reduce the boilerplate, like automate certain parts of developers' jobs. So from here, we would probably shift from writing this more trivial use cases, this more trivial code manually to automatically generating it with an LLM. And from there, I see how the job market, especially for more junior developers, would change. Their role would be slightly different. They would not have to write this code by hands. They will probably generate it, and from there, they may need to operate on a higher level of complexity. So, and I see how we'll be creating even more applications over time because AI is making it significantly easier, which means that in the long run, we'll probably need more developer jobs because LLMs can just do as much. They can get to a certain point, but from there, you need a developer to finish the job or to maintain the system. And on the other side, so that's for web developers overall. For Angular developers, it very much depends what these AI tools are using out of the box, whether they're using Angular or Vue or React or any of these other alternatives, like let's say Angular or Next.js or any of these other alternatives. The more AI tools are generating Angular applications, well, the better and the richer the job market will be. And it's interesting to see how there are just under 5 companies that are actually providing these AI models. Everyone else is building just wrappers on top of them. Like Cloud, for example, is a very popular model for generating code, and we have so many applications that are just simply wrappers on top of them that enable you to generate whole applications with their tool. So the whole market is owned by a few companies, and there are hundreds of thousands of consumers of these companies. So it's just an interesting dynamic.
Minko, this has been an absolutely fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for taking time to share your insights on Angular's evolution, the incredible advancement coming in 2025 plus, and how AI will shape the future of web development. To everyone listening, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a comment of what excites you most about Angular's future. Minko, once again, huge thanks for joining me today. Looking forward to seeing where Angular goes next. See you all in the next episode.
Thank you very much for having me. Pleasure to join you as well.